I used to believe that if you really want someone in your life, you have to fight for them. We've all been told that love is about maximum effort, right? But I had to learn the hard way that this is exactly how you drive the person you care about the most completely away. You think you're showing love, but they feel pressure. You think you're showing care, but to them, it just smells like neediness. And the absolute worst part about this cycle, and something I fell into for a long time, is that the harder you try to fix it, the worse it gets. You double down on the texts, you shower them with attention, you desperately try to prove your worth. But they just keep slipping away. Because that's not how attraction works. Attraction isn't something you can grab and hold onto. The tighter you squeeze, the faster it slides through your fingers. It's a psychological game most people completely misunderstand because we're conditioned to believe effort equals reward. But some things aren't won with effort, they're won with self-control. Think about the last time you found yourself completely consumed by someone. I've been there, where my entire day, my whole mood, dictated by a single person. One text would put me on top of the world, and a few hours of silence would leave me completely anxious. You find yourself constantly checking your phone, watching their online status, tracking their last scene, and spinning these elaborate narratives in your head. Maybe they're just busy. Maybe they didn't see it. But deep down, you know the truth. You feel the shift, and you know it's not in your favor. This is the exact moment attraction begins to fracture. Our instinct is to push harder, but that's the fatal flaw. The very things we instinctively want to do to save the connection are the exact things that destroy it. I want to share a quick story that illustrates this perfectly. I look back at a guy the first used to know. His life was simple, balanced, and he was completely locked into his goals and routines. Then, someone new walked into his life. At first, it was effortless. Light conversations, shared laughs, a natural spark that slowly deepened. He thought he'd finally found what he was waiting for, so he started investing. He gave her his time, his energy, and eventually, his entire focus. Suddenly, his mornings started with her text, and his nights ended with her on his mind. If she replied quickly, he was happy. If she took her time, he was a wreck. He thought this was love, but it wasn't. It was emotional dependency. He had handed over the keys to his own happiness, and as soon as that shift happens, the mystery vanishes. She started to realize he was always there. Always available, always ready, completely predictable. And the second predictability takes over, the excitement dies. The human brain is hardwired to be excited by uncertainty. We naturally devalue the things that are handed to us without effort. That's when the distance creeps in. The texts get shorter, the replies take longer, and the energy turns dry. Confused and anxious, he did what most people do. He doubled down. More attention, more texts, more validating. But the more he pursued, the further she retreated, because attraction isn't built on effort, it's built on emotional balance. That's the first real secret. The more you chase, the more attraction dies. People want your attention, but they do not want your emotional weight. When your presence starts feeling like an obligation, people will instinctively create space. This brings us to the second realization I had to come to terms with. Constant availability destroys your emotional value. Think about it. If something is always accessible to you without limits, you eventually take it for granted. Our brains stop viewing it as a luxury and start viewing it as the default. And default things don't excite us. That's the tragedy of modern dating. The person who cares the most often loses their value the fastest. It's not actually a game of love, it's a game of perception. How someone perceives you determines whether the attraction lives or dies. If they feel like you're perfectly fine without them, they're drawn to you. If they feel like you depend on them to function, they back away. Attraction thrives on equality, not dependency. The moment you display a crippling fear of losing someone, you've already lost your leverage. When you operate from a place of fear, your behavior shifts completely. You start overreacting, overthinking, and panicking during periods of silence. Even if you don't say it out loud, that anxious energy radiates off you. And here's a harsh truth I had to accept. When someone can see your fear of losing them, they stop fearing losing you. Your frantic efforts don't look like romance. They look like insecurity. True attraction requires confidence and stability. It requires the other person to feel that you are already complete on your own. Value only exists where there is a risk of loss. If there's no risk, the respect vanishes. They aren't trying to punish you, they're just retreating because your energy has become too heavy to carry. The turning point happens when you learn to speak less and let your absence do the talking. Most people try to fix a fading connection with words, long paragraphs, constant explanations, repeating how much they care. But when emotions are repeated constantly out of anxiety, they lose their weight. If you tell someone you miss them every single day while chasing them, the words become background noise. But when you step back, anchor yourself, and focus on your own life, you give them the space to actually feel your absence. Human beings don't bond through constant noise, they bond in the spaces between. When you finally develop the self-control to stop reacting to every silence, to stop filling every gap with your anxiety, the entire dynamic shifts. Self-control is the ultimate power move in attraction. We think attraction is about controlling how the other person feels, but it's entirely about controlling yourself. When you stabilize your own emotions, your presence becomes grounded. And grounded energy is incredibly magnetic. When you reclaim your routine, focus on your goals, and pull your happiness back into your own hands, your entire frequency changes. You stop looking needy, and you start looking whole. Suddenly, the uncertainty flips. The other person realizes you aren't just sitting by the phone anymore. A little bit of curiosity returns, and curiosity is the spark that reignites attraction. Now, I'm not talking about playing childish mind games, pretending to be busy, or intentionally ignoring people. This is about actually building a life where your world doesn't revolve around a single person. It's about keeping your identity intact. Attraction only lasts as long as you maintain your self-respect. The second you lose yourself in someone else, they lose their reason to look at you. At the end of the day, you can't force someone to value you. You can't convince them to care. But what you can do is build yourself into someone so grounded, so emotionally secure, that their absence doesn't break you. True power isn't about successfully capturing someone else, it's about refusing to lose yourself. If you're still entirely fixated on them under the surface, a temporary change in your behavior won't work. The real shift has to be internal. It's about emotional detachment, not becoming cold, but realizing your joy is your own responsibility. Ask yourself, do you actually miss that specific person, or are you just addicted to the validation and the routine you built around them? When you stop running after the wrong things, you give the right things a chance to catch up to you. Never sacrifice your own foundation just to keep someone else comfortable. Because attraction always ends exactly where self-abandonment begins.